My name is Mike Giblin. I'm a freelance illustrator caricaturist. I've always had a keen eye for observational drawing. That's what me folks will tell you. And all the way through childhood, people said, "Oh, he's going to be an artist when he grows up." And I was like, "Oh yeah, that sounds cool," but I didn't quite know what that entailed. I've always been able to kind of look at something and sort of interpret it on paper in some way. The walls of the house where I grew up, you know, I kind of know the person that lives there now, and when they stripped the wallpaper off, they found all my drawings behind the wallpaper. I kind of went through school thinking, okay, I'm probably going to do art in some capacity, and I ventured into photography and filmmaking things for a little while. But all the way through the 90s, no matter what I was doing, I had one eye on cartoon art. I'm deeply inspired by movies of the 80s and 90s and pop culture of the 80s and 90s. Then later on, an artist called Tom Richmond, who is still possibly my #1 favourite artist now, and I discovered his work as I first discovered the internet, really about 1998, 99. I used to go on his site all the time, and I realised that he not only did illustration like magazine work and Mad magazine work, but he also did live caricatures. He also had a caricature stand at a theme park where he'd sit and draw people. Blimey, you know, that people do this for a living. That's crazy, you know. I mean, that's kind of the genesis of you know, how I've wound up here today, is like discovering these artists in the 90s and kind of emulating their work, if you will. The most challenging part of my work is trying to keep motivation and focus. But I've got a massive list of ideas for projects that I'll never ever get around to doing. I might be watching a music video, think, oh man, that would be cool, you know, like I've never seen an image from that video or something like that. So that's part of my inspiration as well. It's just the things that I haven't seen that I kind of want to see in the world. It's less. Oh, I must draw everybody around me. You know, I'm fascinated by faces. I am, but I more kind of want to use the skills that I've got, which is the ability to capture likeness and kind of personality and kind of simplify people to like a very graphic form. You know, I kind of want to use that to capture the things that I love and that I'm passionate about. I don't have a favourite piece of art that I've created. It's always the next one that I'm working on, really. I think it's a very dangerous thing. Dangerous is a strong word, that's ridiculous, but I think it's dodgy territory for an artist to say that that's absolutely my best work, and you know, like I need to reach for those standards. I mean, I'm looking at these ones, for instance, here, which I was very happy with when I did them, but I can see lots of things that I wouldn't do the same again. Yeah, I've got lots of bits of art that I'm happy with, that I think, oh, that turned out really nicely. But I don't think of things in those terms. I think right, okay, how can I get to the next stage? How can I improve on where I've come from? What can I do next? Where can I go? And I look at other artists' work all the time. I do. I mean, it's you know, it's impossible not to, as an artist, to look at other people and kind of compare yourself and think, man, how am I gonna get to that stage? I try and remind myself about that daily. You know, it's like I can do things that a lot of other people can't. I'm a little bit guilty of trying to be all things to all people. I'm kind of like Homer Simpson chasing a squirrel around a tree. I've kind of been a loose cannon for too long, you know. It's quite rare to have an artist that can do it all, you know. Yeah, I'm always striving to improve and always striving to reach another level in my art. And while I've got pieces that I like and pieces that I love, I don't label them as favourites as such. If you didn't know it was George Clooney, it might not register straight away that it's him. So that's an aspect of my reference that I'm always looking out for, is does that picture punch me in the face as immediately being that person or that character? I started working at Alton Towers in the spring of 2002, yeah. It was purely one of those where I thought, well, nothing to lose, you know, it's an adventure, let's go and live in the countryside for the summer and see what happens. So I went down. I was immediately paired up with this older guy, who was an amazing artist, but a chronic alcoholic and like a real Jekyll and Hyde kind of character. He was my wingman for the summer. He sort of showed us the ropes and things. At first, it was a repeat of the experience I'd had the previous summer when I did a few days at Blackpool Pleasure Beach. I realised very quickly that it's one thing to sit with a magazine at home, doing your own drawings. I mean, no one's judging that. When you're drawing in front of people, everyone's hanging on your every pen stroke, and you've got to make it count. You know, you've got to nail it. And I still wasn't there when I started working at Alton Towers. I can't actually remember what the quality was of those early drawings, but I think they were horrendous. And by the end of that season, I was kind of having a really good time. You know, I was kind of playing to the crowd a little bit more, and I was like, oh, watch this, you know, like, and giving people big noses and things, and doing all sorts of crazy stuff. But the big thing I also took away from the start was the fear of drawing in front of people. I was frightened and nervous, and just I didn't like being watched. You know, I thrive on that now, but it was trial by fire, and I get asked a lot. I mean, people just message me out the blue, just saying how do you learn how to do this, and I always say that the best thing for me was just drawing thousands and thousands of people. Some of the biggest milestones in my career so far, probably just in a broad sense, developing that eye for caricature quite early on through my theme park work, through repetition and drawing hundreds and hundreds of people, thousands of people. And people say to me all the time, do you walk down the street, is it like the Matrix? Do you sort of see people as like walking grotesque exaggerations of how they really look? And it's not like that at all. If I go into caricaturist mode, I look at people as a jumble of shapes at events. I draw couples together or just friends or whatever. But you can really see the difference between two people when they're sat together. Somebody might have a big round head, somebody might have a long thin head. And so I'm always looking for those contrasts and comparisons. I'd say a second significant milestone was actually, and it's kind of a bittersweet's the wrong word, but it was kind of, it could give me a false sense of accomplishment, this second one. It was when I worked for ITV doing a show called Newsoids, which was 2015, 2016, and I ended up designing about 90 or 100 of the puppets for this show. The show itself was met with a mixed response, and it went away after 2 series. But around about that time, I kind of got a bit cocky, got too big for me boots quite quickly, and I started turning work away. I was like, no, sorry, you know, I'm working on my TV show, you know, which was a big mistake. 2016, it was gone. So all of a sudden, I kind of turned a lot of live event work away. I turned a lot of commissioned work away, and I kind of had to start from scratch a lot. So that was a milestone, but it was a humbling milestone. I'm going to continue to make a living being a freelance artist. I need to not turn away opportunities just because something else cool comes along. I think you need to have that power of observation, because that's at the core of like drawing caricatures and like drawing likenesses of people. I mean, I can certainly, you know, I've certainly got many kind of philosophies and ideas about how one can learn the art of caricature, and it all boils down from like building things up from the ground up. And every artist works in a different way. That's absolutely fine. But for me, I think in terms of a character designer or sort of someone who works in animation, which is simple shapes and then refinement. Yes, I think you can be taught caricature, but I think you need to be willing to put the work in as well. Repetition, draw faces any way you can. And the weird thing is, people tell me regularly that I've got a style that like it's immediately obvious when it's one of my drawings. But I think I'm too close to that, because I don't really know what my style is. And I read an interesting quote by a favourite artist of mine, Steve Silver, a few years ago, who's he's kind of more of a teacher these days, but his roots are in character design. When he was a younger artist, he was always searching for a style, and he got very frustrated that he didn't consider himself to have a style. And then he woke up one day and thought, hang on a second, like my style is just being able to draw whatever I want whenever I want to draw it, kind of thing, you know. His style is something that would kind of unroll organically anytime he sat down to draw something. I've come to incorporate into my own philosophies as well, you know, like if I sit down to draw someone, I don't think, okay, well, I'll draw that person in the style of an animated character or something like that, or I'll go a bit more realistic with this. It might be in the back of my head somewhere, but I'll invariably just draw them how I think they should be drawn in that moment, abandon all pretense of style and just kind of becoming a better artist and learning, working on those areas that you're a bit weaker in, or will all kind of manifest themselves in your fundamental style as people see it.